Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Enable Sustainable Business Growth with Cloud Metro, sponsored by Juniper. Before we begin, I will cover a few housekeeping items. On the left-hand side of your screen is the Q&A. If you have any questions during the webcast, please type your question into the Q&A box and submit your questions to our speakers. All questions will be saved, so if we don't get to answer you, we may follow up via email. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the yellow Help widget. Here you can find answers to common questions. A copy of today's slide deck is available for download in the green Resource List widget. And near the end of today's presentation, please take 1 minute to complete the survey that's open on your screen. Your feedback is extremely helpful. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available about 1 day after the event and can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier today. I would now like to turn the event over to Heavy Reading Senior Principal Analyst, Sterling Perrin.
Thanks, Brittany. Hello, welcome everybody to today's webinar on Enable Sustainable Business Growth with Cloud Metro. My name is Sterling Perrin. I'm an analyst with Heavy Reading, and I'm going to be your moderator for the next hour as we go through the webinar. Here's a look at the agenda for today. So this webinar is part of a larger project that we did, Heavy Reading did, working with Juniper. It is based on a global survey, and I'll talk through the details of that survey in a moment. Also, as part of the project is a white paper, which is available for download, as well as today's webinar, which is really going to focus on the discussion of the key findings from the survey and analysis, and I'll get a lot of help from our expert speakers from Juniper, who I'll introduce in a moment. So the flow of the webinar really reflects the content of the survey. We'll start with Cloud Metro, really looking at the drivers for that, and then bring in Juniper to help define out exactly what that is and how that's an evolution in metro networks. And then we'll get into some of the really the key topic or focus areas within Cloud Metro, so kind of focusing in first on network automation, which is a key part, and then specifically on the coherent pluggable optics trends. And then we'll wrap up at the end. I'll have all of our panelists just give some final thoughts, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience, and we should have a good at least 10 to 15 minutes for your questions. So please do, as Brittany explained, ask those through the console as they come to you, and we'll gather them up. We'll hit as many as we can at the end. The project itself, as I said, it was really based on a Heavy Reading survey that we conducted in April of this year. So quite fresh. This is the first readout of the results publicly. 76 responses globally. You can see the makeup of the respondents on the top bar chart, on the top pie chart. 58%-ish North America, and then the rest of regions, the remainder, with the strongest showing from the Europe, Middle East, and Africa among the other regions. But you can see APAC and Central Latin America represented as well. Also really represented by a lot of large operators. Almost half the survey group was over $5 billion in annual revenue. So really a lot of good tier one representation. There is a white paper of the key findings. I believe you can download that here at any point during the webinar. It's also available on the Light Reading website if you search on through our white papers. That was published in June 22, so quite new as well. And then, of course, today's webinar where we'll analyze the results. Helping me to do that, we have three speakers or panelists from Juniper. Kanika Atri, who's Senior Director in Product Management, and she really focuses on the automation portion, and she'll help with those results. Olivia Eustache, who's a Senior Product Manager, and he is focused at a higher level on the systems and platforms, and he'll help us parse through the Cloud Metro results that I'll go through in a moment. And then Moran Roth, Director of Product Management, and he's going to focus on the coherent pluggable optics portion of the results. So welcome all of you, and we'll hear from each of you throughout. As I said, it's going to be really a discussion based with kind of a run through of different findings. So with that, let me jump into the Cloud Metro portion. And starting at a high level in the survey, we asked about what are the primary business drivers for network operators to modernize their metro networks. We gave them a bunch of options. They could choose multiple within it. I think we had up to top three choices. And the results came through, as you can see, in descending order on the chart on the left of this slide. Network reliability, increasing reliability and resilience topped the list. Very closely with that, we had meeting the traffic growth requirements, but also strong showing from Metro Edge Cloud requirements, and then lowering total cost of ownership. Looking at these, certainly we expect is from all of our surveys going back many, many years, traffic growth requirements drive evolutions of the network. The more surprising part is that really the top showing of reliability and resilience, we're starting to see that really move up the list on our requirements across multiple surveys that we're conducting. So that's a very high level view of drivers. We also wanted to drill into metro network capabilities. So we asked, what are the most important metro networking capabilities? So given that you have drivers for your metro network, what are you looking for in specific capabilities to modernize that network? Network security and automation top that list, 68%. You can see selected network modernization, and 59%, which is quite strong, automation. Also important, if we run down the list, high speeds, moving to 100 gig, 400 gig, et cetera. Service assurance, slicing was also in the high scoring, and then next gen protocols as well. All of those were 40% of the group selecting or above. Again, these were multiple choice, so they could select up to three, so they're your top three. So all of those are quite strong in the findings. With that, let me bring in Olivier to kind of flesh out some of the findings and insights across both the drivers as well as the capabilities. Key thoughts here, Olivier?
Hello, everyone. I think, not a surprise. I think the recent events, we all went through and still going through, kind of unfortunately, make us realize the importance of connectivity as a network, to have us all together. And definitely reliability, resilience of services are very important. You mentioned it, traffic growth. It's been around since many, many years, but it's exploding clearly because, everybody's connected from home, at the office, etc. And it changed, a bit the paradigm in terms of how our customers, the service providers, they have to invest. They have to accelerate their investments in order to cope with this growth, making good choices in terms of investments they are making, right? And saving money if they can, because it's also the way they're spending on the equipment, the way they're going to roll out their services. That whole equation is very important. So not surprised by the results. It's definitely, I think, showing, what's going on in the world and the importance, again, of connectivity. Security also is a key topic. And all in all, I think it's about network uptime and streamlined operation for our customers.
All right, and we're going to get into, in a moment, we'll get into kind of how Juniper strategy is evolving given these requirements. But before we do that, let me bring in our other panelists as well to provide any high-level thoughts here. Obviously, automation ranking second, and Kanika is going to focus on automation, and then the high speeds ranked third, and Moran's going to focus on the coherent optics role. So really hitting on those. But Kanika, any initial thoughts here on the findings, either automation or if you wanted to address any of the other ones?
Yeah, maybe I'm happy to chime in. Thank you very much for having me, Sterling. Automation, I'm not at all surprised to see it as one of the top of the list. And one reflection from this is, even though the way we ask the question, which is very pointed around automation, and we saw 59% people marking that as important, even if you look at the other elements, automation is actually pretty integral to most of them. I mean, take, for example, security. There is an element of automating the security capabilities that, where automation plays a role. Service assurance, much of that is delivered via automation solutions like, for example, even in Juniper portfolio, we have an active assurance capability. Network slicing cannot be done at scale, without automation. And even in things like the integrated optics, the manageability of that is equally important. So automation actually nicely weaves through the entire metro networking capabilities and needs to be thought through from the start, not as an afterthought. And that is a very, very important takeaway in our strategy, our evolution of the product portfolio around automation.
Yeah, I mean, you could not look at a result like this with 59% and say automation's an afterthought by any stretch, not if you wanted to be successful as a service provider or a vendor. We'll get to the strategy in a second. Moran, just wanted to let you chime in if you wish in terms of this high-level slide here.
Yeah, thank you, Sterling. So in the previous slide of the driver, we saw 2 of the top 4 drivers being for metro modernization being traffic growth and while lowering TCO. And we see in the capabilities, high ranking are the transition to 400 gig and even 800 gig. And the IP optical integration, which is critical for traffic to support the traffic growth and lowering TCO by eliminating dedicated optical transponders in the metro network. And we'll touch more about the integration of coherent optics and routers in the subsequent section. But I want to make another point related to the Metro PON, passive optical network integration, that is showing here. It shows relatively down in terms of important capabilities. I think that this is not because it's not important, it's because there are fewer service providers that are playing in this market, in supporting passive optical network architecture for residential and business aggregation. But for those service providers, the integration of these capabilities, the OLT, line termination capabilities into the optics and into the router provides similar benefits as we discussed for the coherent optics, in the fact that it can eliminate a dedicated OLT shelf. And by this, again, lowering TCO, which is a significant driver for this network modernization. So both of these, what I would term smart optics or integrated optics solutions, capabilities are really important to achieve the goals for service providers.
All right, excellent. With that, let me move on to really the strategically, given these trends, how has Juniper's strategy evolved specifically to address these capabilities and requirements for network operators? Juniper has been messaging, if you look at the Light Reading website and really everywhere, quite around the cloud metro. So I'll give you a moment to help define that. We have one non-survey slide in the deck, and it's this one, and it's really aimed at just helping define this concept. Olivia, I'll let you address this, and then if the other panelists want to comment, and then we'll get into more of the survey data.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So here, this is a slide related to our latest announcements regarding our cloud metro. And, in our definition of cloud metro, we look at, the connectivity, the compute service experience convergence, And the question for us was still, right, when we develop our portfolio, how we look at our customers, at the market, and what we need to drive definitely in this portfolio. We looked at the survey, that you just did, and we have identified key elements, reliability, resilience, sustainability, the optics, the automation, etc. And if you look at, our strategy as we move to this cloud metro, right, from bottom to top, we are spot on. It's definitely the things we have identified earlier that are, fueling, our energy to develop this portfolio. So security challenges, built in the network itself. So not relying on, something on the side, but built in the network. And this is what now we need to bring. Bringing the right experience for the user. By embedded active assurance, it means like monitoring, understanding what's going on. And this is key. And this is, again, what we are now putting in the development we are doing to make sure that we give that right understanding to our customers. We talked about the convergence and the challenge now for the customers, to put together all their services and making sure that they have the right level of slicing, and operability there. So that's something we bring. And in terms of the way we evolve with that, it's all about lifting the rigidity. So make the network as agile as possible and making the right development on the product to bring that. And the way the people are consuming the product, so we talked about, there was one part in the survey about the TCO. In terms of investment protection, we present those solutions to our customers to make sure that we give more longevity to the equipment, so they could rely on them, in a better fashion, in a way. So I think all in all, it's all about the way we bring together this cloud metro approach, and we move from, again, leaving behind this rigidity we had in the past and moving forward. Bringing all those attributes. There is Kanika, we talk about the automation, a very important part, a key part. So bringing, those right tools, automation with AI ops, that is a workforce multiplier, definitely, that enhance definitely the productivity for our customers. So this is our approach in the cloud metro, and again, converging connectivity, compute, and service experience, all relying on three very important pillars: people, planet, and profitability.
All right, very good. So one question did come in, a clarification. Maybe we should hit that and then move on with the discussion. But this was, Moran, I'll just let you comment on this now rather than wait. But MetroPON integration, somebody's interested in just exactly what do you mean by that term?
Yeah, so as we are seeing, the metro is the new edge, and passive optical network, especially for residential aggregation, but also for business aggregation, right, are integrated into the edge functionality. We are seeing smart optics, and we are integrating more functionality into the optics of the passive optical network that integrate the OLT functionality into the optics, by this eliminating a dedicated OLT shelf. As we said, right, one of the drivers is lowering TCO. So this integration of functionality really allows the aggregation router to provide full user functionality in terms of managing the PON interconnect to residential subscribers, and with integration with the BNG, provide full user management for the service provider from the edge. So this is, again, it's really integrating all the functionality that is needed in order to provide these residential services and managing the end customer access to the internet, access to video, all of this, managing it from the same router infrastructure in the metro edge.
Yeah, pawn on a stick is one term that I hear in reference, which I think describes it well. Just looking at the clock, we need to move to the next section, but I'll give you, Moran, if you've got like 30 seconds you want to spend on any high-level points here, and then I'll do the same for Kanika, and then we'll move into automation. Any other thoughts on this one, Moran?
Again, just one comment here. It's really about bottoms-up rethinking the way the metro is built, from the system architecture to the operations. And we'll talk more about that in the next sections.
Okay. Kanika, any comments on the strategic cloud metro definition and view?
Yeah, I just want to re-emphasize, right? This is moving from retro to cloud metro, from retro metro to cloud metro. And what I really like about this approach is it's like a beautiful amalgamation of all the elements, right? Getting the architecture right from the first, from the start. Not thinking of the different layers and silos, but operations and manageability built in from the start. So it's like a shrink-wrapped solution of hardware and software coming together to solve true metro challenges and the drivers that we just talked about. And I believe with Juniper, we have really put it really nicely all together into one solution that works from day one.
I do like the term retro metro. Clever. Let's go to automation. So Kanika, we'll keep you on for this. So we've got 3 data points we'll walk through, and I'll let you comment on each of those, and if the others wish to comment as well. But let me give the quick readout and then let you do add on to the analysis. So we had asked earlier we asked what capabilities are you looking for when you go to these next gen metros. Automation came up second on that list and quite high. Here we asked, looking at automation, what are your drivers to implement automation in your metro network? So kind of a deeper dive, given metros automation so important, what's driving it? And the top 2, and it really stands out as a top 2 in this case, reducing time to deploy services and then improving productivity at essentially with the margin of error really tied in the top. And then you can see other probably a second tier category of important, but a little bit behind those 2, reliability and uptime, overall customer experience, which is certainly a term that's gaining a lot of buzz right now, and then lowering total cost of ownership, which always seems to be in the mix when we throw it in. Interesting, it doesn't tends to not be the top, but it's in the mix. Thoughts and comments on this data, Kanika?
I think this is spot on. The way I like to think about it is, there are 3 guiding principles when we think about the future of automation. And the very first of them is that speed matters. What our customers want, is to deliver business outcomes, right? They don't do automation for automation's sake. But it's not enough just to deliver an outcome. That outcome doesn't mean anything if it takes 3 years to deploy, right? So the very first thing is speed matters. They should be working, they should be innovating at the pace of the business, not at the pace of the internal systems, right? And we have seen that as a very big roadblock for many of the automation projects. 2, I love the word productivity, right? Automation has to be all about focusing on productivity, not production, if you know what I mean, right? We're so busy just implementing and deploying that the actual outcomes and the productivity gains that we want to drive with that may not be achieved, right? At least that has been the way of the past. And I also love this point around experience, right? When we talk about experience, it's not just the end customer experience and the services, but it's also the experience of the operators and the people running these networks themselves, right? The usability, it just needs to have this easy button. So in my mind, all of these clearly have an impact on things like network TCO and uptime reliability. three most important driving principles for us to reimagine automation is, speed matters, shorter the time to outcome. Allow the customers to focus on the productivity, not just, managing these systems, and do it literally out of the box, at clicks, so that that experience is extremely simple, and we see those outcomes for the operators.
All right, let's so kind of queuing off your term of the easy button. We do have challenges, so let's get into some of those, and we could probably spend quite a bit of time on that. But we've got one slide here, and we'll kind of touch on it and maybe drill in more in the Q&A when we get to it. But we did want to understand what are the biggest challenges in achieving metro automation strategy, and here, it really is, I would say, a top three came through. The complexity of managing equipment from multiple vendors. From our view, automation and open have to really be hand in hand. It's multi-vendor, multi-domain, and so it requires a great deal of openness, as well as a lot of new tools, primarily software, really, to come into play. With that, a little bit below, but with that lack of maturity of technology, that could lend itself to certainly to complexity. And then in this case, cost to implement, so expensive, perhaps due to the fact that you have to introduce a lot of new technologies and maybe skills of the workforce. But those are the three that came to the top. I'll let you comment on those, Kanika.
Yeah, this is actually reflecting this approach to automation, which is a kind of DIY-led. So many of our customers, right, they are picking up solutions from multiple vendors and trying to put it in a framework that tries to solve all problems for all domains. And that automatically leads to complexity. That automatically, puts the overall time to deployment in perspective. Talking to several customers, they tell me it has taken them 2 to 3 years to get this whole DIY automation systems even up and running, leave alone, meet the outcomes they intended. And when we surveyed, through many of these customers, 70% of them told us that their DIY projects were failing. Not only it was taking longer, but these projects were failing. And I think this result reflects that entire approach. And clearly there is a need to reimagine not what problems we solve. I think the problems are the same. We've got to have much better day zero, day one, day two use cases to automate. But we need to reimagine how those are deployed and consumed, because most of these challenges are actually reflecting that. And end of the day, what happens is, when the senior management doesn't see the outcomes in 2 to 3 years, they start questioning the ROI. They start asking you, why should I spend more money, trying to do more automation when your previous project didn't meet, right? So there is clearly, this is the reason why we need to reimagine. At Juniper, we believe that the future of WAN automation is cloud delivered. And maybe that's a lead-in to talk a little bit more about, what the respondents to the survey thought of that.
You are quite good at this, because it is. I could see how you'd set that up nicely. I know, because we've worked on another project, and so all of the survey data that we're showing is from the project that I outlined up front, except this one particular set of data, which we worked with Juniper and several other sponsors in a specific transport automation project. Those results were published in, we did the readout of those in when did we do that? June, I think.
Yes.
This one data bit is from that survey. It relates in here as a potential, response to some of the challenges. It focuses on automation from the cloud specifically. So in that survey, which had 77 respondents, we asked, global survey as well, how does your organization plan to use transport network automation specifically from the cloud? On the left is the full survey group from that survey, and you can see a little over half said they would be interested in a combination of public and private cloud. 31% of the full survey group there said private cloud only. But when we parse that further, which is the bar chart on the right, and we pulled out really the lead adopters, which are the orange bars there from the rest of that survey group, which is the blue bars, we saw some differences in what the early adopters are doing. And the takeaway from that study, which I think we highlighted on that other webinar as well, is that the earlier adopters are much more interested in cloud generally, and actually much less likely to prefer private cloud only. And so it was interesting. It was one of the real, when you do these sort of deep cuts of the data, that they don't always show a difference. This is pretty stark. Kanika, I'll let you comment on the overall results of cloud, and then if you want to talk about public versus private at all, you can do that as well.
Sure. I mean, first of all, this is a no-brainer to me. If you just look at the economics, just the pure business benefits of going cloud and SaaS for automation versus DIY, which people have tried for the last 10 years, to me, it is so obvious. One, we've run a lot of, surveys and reports and analysis on it. First, going SaaS means 50% faster time to market for the very first time that you even launch. So you kind of cut down the time to deploy. And for Metro, we already saw how critical that is. You cut that time to deploy it by half. So you literally have a login, you have a box that arrives, you have a login, you scan the barcode on the box, and boom, your automation system is up and you're ready to manage this box from day one, right? Second benefit, economic benefit as well of SaaS is once you get into the innovation and the agility, the feature velocity, our reports tell us it's 70% faster to actually deploy new features. And that's what I was talking about, moving at the pace of business. It's all about differentiation, like you said. And if there is a need to implement, a new capability through your automation software, you can do it 70% faster. And all of that, end of the day, is also about TCO. And our analysis tells us that the SaaS model is 40% overall lower TCO as compared to DIY kind of model, where you have to manage all these overheads of your servers, people, you need staff, trained staff to manage, and just to get it into production. And here in SaaS world, you don't have to worry about that at all. But it's not just the economic, it's the technical benefits as well, right? Think about AI ops. In my mind, the only way to do AI ops is actually cloud delivered, because now you have the collective intelligence from across the world, and of course it's anonymized, right? But the learnings, one problem that occurs in North America has been solved on the cloud through your root cause analysis, new data model on AI. That is available the next day to anybody using a SaaS offering in Asia Pacific. So to me, that whole technical benefits is equally empowering. And I think that's where, to your point about public versus private cloud, yes, for many tier ones, there is a kind of a private cloud motion versus public. But we're now actually, the early adopters are really, really stepping up and beyond and going very fast onto the public cloud as well. Many have actually deployed some earlier applications, maybe not the control layer use cases, but things like observability, things like managing devices. So not those that are in the path of the data or the packets, but really sort of high. So those first steps are already happening, and we are thrilled to be talking to many of them. At Juniper, this is a key part of our strategy. We still offer on-prem solutions, but we're really doubling down on the cloud offering, and we are really excited for next year, as we are going ready to go commercial for Cloud Metro to begin with.
All right, and with that, let's move to our poll question. So we'll bring in the audience here related to cloud, and we wanted to focus this one specifically on public cloud. So this is about public cloud, and we want to know for this audience, what do they think? Will network operators adopt transport network automation applications from the public cloud in the next 5 years. And you can answer yes, already using, or plans exist to do this in the next 5 years. No, either there'll be no public cloud or I guess private cloud only. Or if you're unsure, you can click the third option, maybe, or undecided, if it's just too early to really know at this point. If you're a network operator, you answer on behalf of yourself. If you're a supplier into the industry, you would answer on just your views based on talking with customers. Let me give a moment for these results to come up, and then I will push them when they get to a critical mass. And in the meantime, we will have time for Q&A. So this is the time to think about any questions that you might want to submit, and we will get to those. We've got one other section that we'll go through with Moran on the pluggable optics, coherent pluggables, and then we'll get into some wrap up and then Q&A. Let me push these here, and we'll just Kanika, since you're the automation expert, let's let you comment here. A lot of undecided, 40%, that's fairly high, that is high. Of those who have made a decision, over a third, 37%, maybe even do another push, kind of holding steady, saying yes, and then 20% no. Any thoughts, but quick thoughts, summary of how these came back?
I think this is pretty consistent with the response we are seeing. I mean, I'm easy. The yes answer ranges between 33 to 50% or so. I think that's a great start. I mean, we're still ahead of the curve here, and the prime time will be somewhere around 2025, I believe. So I think this number is very encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, the undecided, so it's new. I mean, sometimes people tune into a webinar and it's, you're either like, oh, is this new or have I missed the bus? But this is new, and so you would expect people are going to start looking into this, and it's a trend that will gather over time. Let's move into the final portion, and thank you, Kanika. We'll move into the final portion on coherent pluggable optics, a hot topic, and certainly part of as Cloud Metro is being defined. So ZR Plus, so there's, by kind of quick background, there's 400 ZR, which is the real short range point-to-point standard that came from the OIF. And then there's the concept of 400G ZR Plus, which is not an official standard name, but kind of gelling around the use of those same form factor as ZR optics, but with higher performance. And this is really where we see the applicability of these types of optics in a more telecom types of environments, because they can pass through ROADMs, they have higher performance, and they still fit that small form factor. So this is really the focus when we talk about telecom, is 400G ZR Plus, which is higher performance. And we asked the audience, how much impact do you see from 400G ZR Plus coherent pluggables over the next 3 years? So a fairly tight window of time. 12% report radical, which we defined as becoming the dominant interface for metro connectivity. And then over half, so the majority saying significant, which we defined as being used broadly, so a lot of deployments, but not the primary interface across the metro. And then you can see just 13% saying no impact. For a new technology like this, I mean, this stuff is really just starting to come out commercially. This would also be very much in the new category. Pretty significant enthusiasm and plans. Moran, I'll bring you in as the Juniper expert on the optics to comment on this finding.
Yeah, so our audience here in the webinar might think that we are talking about IP optical integration for quite a while, but what this shows is really 400 gig ZR Plus, and especially in small form factor, right? QSFP DD form factor is a game changer. The integration with the router without compromise. It's the first time that you can mix gray optics, short reach, and long reach coherent optics without penalizing the router capabilities. And we see from these results that service providers understand the value proposition. They understand that it allows them to eliminate dedicated optical transponders in the metro network. And obviously, the result of that is reducing CapEx. But and what we see in terms of the optical terminal in our calculation, and it's validated by open analysis from analysts in the market, that it reduces CapEx for the optical terminal by up to 60%. When you apply this to the network-wide cost savings, it can be 30% and more, depending on the topology of the network. Obviously, that's a huge driver for service provider to reduce their CapEx, but there is more to it. Because when you eliminate the transponders, you eliminate a lot of OpEx. You don't need to onboard these new transponders. You don't need to train personnel to operate and maintain it over life. And there are obvious cost savings in power and space that are being saved here. So these are the impact to the network from these pluggables and the integration into the routers.
And this, I will just add, we've asked this type of question in multiple surveys over the past, I would say, 18 months, and it is pretty consistent, this level of interest in the technology. We still get a lot of pushback from a lot of the suppliers in the industry about challenges, and we'll hit on challenges in a moment, but the operator demand is very clear and consistent for this type of option. Moran, you did talk about IP over DWDM, and so that, just moving to this slide here, so pluggable optics can go in different types of elements. Integration into the switch router is what we would call IP over DWDM, but you can also integrate it into a traditional DWDM system and just get rid of embedded optics and put in pluggables, ZR Plus or other. Or these, on the slide here, it's called purpose-built or compact modular, pizza box, these types of platforms. You could either have those kind of hardwired, embedded in the platform, or use a pluggable strategy. So we asked this audience, what types of elements do they expect to deploy their Coherent pluggables in? And it was pick all that apply. We gave them a 3-year and a 5-year window. But if you look at the 3 years, it does show the strongest interest is in the IP over DWDM concept, over 70%. But also there is interest in integrated into systems, and a bit less for, I think we can come up with different reasons, but a bit less into these compact modular platforms. So it does seem to have an appeal across the board, but is primarily IP over DWDM is a critical piece to the value proposition of these pluggables. Moran, I'll let you comment further on this one as well.
Yeah, so it's not surprising that the new technology like small form factor coherent pluggables find use in different technologies, right? In different equipment types. If you look at the traditional DWDM systems, these small pluggables significantly reduce the cost of compared to what is available today, which is either CFP2, which is bigger pluggable, or integrated optics in transponders. So again, there is no surprise that it will improve the cost structure of these equipment as well. But what we see here in the result is that the big promise is in the integration into switches and routers. And again, that's creates significant TCO improvement with, as I mentioned, with the elimination of transponders, of dedicated optical transponders. In addition, this aligns with a shift to optical line systems. In a different survey that you published last month, there was one specific question about operator plan to deploy open line system with the line system coming from one vendor and the optical terminal coming from a second vendor. And overwhelming majority of respondents said that in the next 3 years, they see the shift and the deployment of open line systems. And here we are, the result aligns because the integration of the optical coherent plug into the router create the same scenario, right? That the optical line system comes from one vendor, and then the router with the coherent optics come from the router vendor.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, and that is very true finding from that last survey, and that was one of the more stark findings to come from that one as well. Let me go to our last slide before we wrap up and then move to Q&A. But I mentioned we would address challenges of managed coherent pluggable optics, and in this one it was really one of these clear findings, managing the existing operational practices of IP routing and optical domains as the top challenge to moving into an IP over DWDM architecture. Moran, I'll let you comment here, and then I think we can bring in Olivier to make some kind of systems level comments as well. But I'll let you take this one. It is quite clear what the challenge is.
Yeah. So we are hearing from our customers that the main challenge that they are facing is managing this new paradigm shift, right? From integrated optical networks coming from a single vendor into an open line system with coherent pluggables and IP over DWDM or IP optical integration. And one of the main issues that is coming up in this question is the fact that there are different teams within service providers today that are managing the optical network and the IP network. Now, organizational changes take time, and the different teams have different expertise and different functions in the organization. Both are very important for the success of the operator. There are tools today that allow these teams to keep working in a similar way to the way they are working today. Today, they are turning up, the optical team is turning up the optical transponders with the line system and is doing the end-to-end testing of that infrastructure. In the optical pluggables today, the coherent optical pluggables in the router, there is a similar framework that allow the separation of the optical part or the optical interface, the laser, from the IP or the host interface to the router. And this really allows the same operational steps. It allows the optical team to turn up the infrastructure, the optical infrastructure end-to-end from the pluggable through the line system to the pluggable on the other side, and then turn over the system, when it's validated, to the IP team to provision the services over that infrastructure. So again, we are not thinking that this integration mandates operator to change the way that they are operating the network.
Excellent. Right. We are coming toward the end. Olivier, wondering if looking at the systems level platforms view, if you can identify some of the primary challenges of building these routers to accommodate coherent pluggable optics, or if it's maybe not a big challenge at all. Just wondering if you can make a couple comments there.
Yes, it is a challenge, and moving to from the retro to the cloud metro, and when we talked about the different adjacencies that now you're going to look, it's not about making the product in silos. So on one end, if I take the optical as an example, moving to the ZR brings a challenge of power. So power you need itself for the optics. If you need power for that optics, it means that when you design your system, you need to have a system that will be able to have this power available for this optics and the proper cooling. So the way we are developing the system for the cloud metro, and it really requires a new approach. So we start again, and we think through like, okay, when we design a chassis, when we design a router, what do we need to put together to make sure that we accommodate these new challenges when it comes to power in terms of or cooling, right? And making sure that when we develop a system for our customer, the key mantra for us is no compromise. We don't want to say to our customers, hey, we develop a card for you, but only half of the ports are working in this high power optics because of those, thermal or power constraints. No compromise here. We want to give the full-fledged and making sure that our customers could utilize properly the system, regardless of, those constraints in terms of power and cooling. So yes, it brings challenges for us, but definitely the way we develop the product and the approach we are taking in this cloud metro, direction, coming with these new kinds of equipments we are developing, we are definitely embracing that.
All right, and let me, we'll move into Q&A. Again, if you've got questions, we do have a few moments to take them before we close out for our panelists. Before we get to the questions, I did want to give each of you a moment to give some last thoughts, in light of the survey, in light of the Cloud Metro launch. Just what are the key takeaways, and kind of like 1 minute each or less. So what are the key takeaways for service providers that you'd want to leave them with? Kanika, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I will say only one thing. I would say, we've had enough lessons from automation, DIY. The future is cloud delivered. And my two recommendation is, start small and go fast. And the cloud is the way to do it. Start with Metro. That's where the automation is going to have the biggest impact given the scale. In the short term, that's where the growth is happening. So start small and go fast.
All right, excellent. Moran, I'll let you go second.
Thank you, Sterling. I'm excited about the result of this survey. It shows that service providers are ready to seize the opportunity of IP optical integration with pluggable coherent optics. I'm also excited about the next step when 800 gig capable ZR optics will do a similar revolution that we are seeing here happening with Metro to long haul by enabling 400 gig capable performance on long haul networks and really making a revolution in long haul and core networks as well.
All right, excellent. Last on the wrap up, Olivier, key takeaways for service providers.
Well, also excited by the survey, and when I look at the way we are, driving our portfolio, the Cloud Metro approach, I think this perfect alignment. So for me, it's like, hey, buy Juniper. Kidding. It's definitely exciting to see and to live this time, and to see this shift happening. It creates challenges for us. It creates challenges in a way for our customers as well, in the way they have to think through their deployments, the ways they're going to roll out their service to cope with, this bandwidth explosion, the resiliency, the reliability of the network. And, what we're trying to bring here is putting all those ingredients together, better systems, better outputs, better operation for our customers, better ways to seize these technology shift to embrace those new challenges. So very exciting. Yes, I think, as Moran just said, the future looks really, really bright. We are excited about that.
All right, excellent. Let me, so one thing in terms of follow-up, if I can find the slide. Moran, this one here, the maintaining, you kind of talked through the maintaining existing operational practices you defined out that they clearly have very separate groups within these companies. I'm wondering if you can elaborate, the crux of the issue, is it primarily a technology issue that the operators are waiting for some way to neatly partition these things, or is it primarily a organizational issue where these operators are just organized a certain way and it doesn't fit the new, this new way of integration? So is it the technology that's stopping it, or is it the organizational structure?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it touched the heart of the issue. The organizational aspects are a barrier, definitely, as I mentioned. I think that we have enough tools today in the optics and in the system to overcome that organizational barriers. But the other aspect is, how do you manage that integrated solution, right? With the router, with coherent optics, and the optical line system. Kanika mentioned that at the beginning, that the solution is in automation. Automation, as Kanika said, it weaves through everything that we are talking here today, including the optics management. Today, operators are managing really two different networks, right? They have the optical networks with transponders and line system, and then they have the IP network. Here, we are seeing a shift where at least part of the optical system will be integrated into the router. And it's really important that all the optical parameters are visible through open APIs. So the controller, the IP controller, is aware of the optical performance parameters and impairments in order to make decisions based on that and mitigate any issue that happens. The integration of the transport controller that control the optical line system and the IP controller is also a key in order to provide this end-to-end management of the complete network.
That is, yeah, absolutely. We could do, I think, even a whole separate webinar on that one issue of how you manage these integrated optic and integrated IP and optical networks. Thank you. I am not seeing any other questions in the queue, so I will close out here. I want to thank Juniper, and of course, thank you to each of our panelists for your insights and just for the work along the way in building this survey. It is quite interesting to me, and hopefully the audience finds it valuable as well. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and this will conclude today's webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Sterling.